The Zephyrian Collective had been conquering worlds for thousands of years, but they never used big guns or massive armies. They had found something much better, a quiet way to make entire planets give up without a fight. Their secret weapon was sound waves that no one could hear, special frequencies that slowly made people stop wanting to fight back. For over 1,000 years, they had used this same trick on 47 different star systems. It worked the same way every time. First, they would hide their transmission equipment somewhere near the target planet. Then they would start broadcasting their silent sounds. These frequencies were carefully designed to reach into people's minds and change how they felt. Day by day, week by week, the inhabitants would become more tired, more sad, and less willing to defend themselves. Within a few decades, whole civilizations would simply surrender without firing a single shot. The collective's scientists called it whisper conversion because it was so quiet and gentle. The aliens they conquered never even knew what was happening. To them, they would just slowly lose their fighting spirit until one day they would welcome the Zephyrians as their new rulers. It was the perfect crime conquest without violence. Victory without war. When their long-range scout ships first detected the small blue planet, orbiting a yellow star in a distant arm of the galaxy, the collective's leaders were pleased. That initial reports looked very promising. The third planet from the sun was full of primitive creatures that walked on two legs. These humans seemed to spend most of their time fighting each other over resources and territory. Their technology was basic. They had barely managed to send a few small ships to their own moon. Their political systems were a mess. With hundreds of different nations that could not agree on anything, Commander Vorthok, the collective's chief xenopsychologist, studied the reports with growing confidence. "These humans are perfect candidates," he told his team. "They show all the classic signs of a species ready for whisper conversion. They are aggressive but primitive, divided but not united, and they have no idea that other intelligent life exists in the universe." The preliminary psychological profiles were even more encouraging. Humans seemed to have strong emotions but weak mental defenses. They were easily influenced by things like music, art, and media. Many of them already suffered from anxiety and depression, which would make the whisper frequencies even more effective. Best of all, they had no experience with psychic warfare or mental manipulation. "This will be easier than the Kronish campaign," Vorthok predicted. "The humans will surrender within 30 years, maybe less." The collective's fourth fleet was assigned to the mission. They moved slowly and carefully, setting up their equipment in the asteroid belt between the fourth and fifth planets. The transmission arrays were hidden inside fake asteroids, completely invisible to human detection systems. Each array was the size of a small moon and capable of broadcasting whisper frequencies across vast distances. The psychological assault began on what humans called a Tuesday morning. The frequencies started low and soft, almost like a gentle hum that no human ear could detect. The sounds were designed to target specific parts of the human brain, the areas that controlled aggression, hope, and the will to fight. Slowly, very slowly, these parts would begin to shut down. The collective had tested these frequencies on thousands of species. The pattern was always the same. First, the target population would become more pessimistic about their future. Then, they would start to feel overwhelmed by the vastness of space and their own insignificance. Finally, they would develop what the collective called cosmic despair, a deep belief that resistance was pointless and that they were better off accepting whatever fate the universe had in store for them. The Whisper campaign was scheduled to last exactly 25 years. By the end of that time, human leaders would be receiving the collective's formal surrender demands. But instead of anger or fear, they would feel only relief. The idea of giving up would seem natural, even wise. Right. Why fight against beings so much more advanced than themselves? Why struggle when they could simply accept their new place in the galactic order? Vorthok monitored the early results from his command ship, hidden in the shadows of the outer system. The initial readings were normal. Human stress levels were rising slightly, and there were small increases in depression and anxiety across the planet. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. But then, something unexpected happened. Instead of becoming more passive, the humans began to increase their military activities. Their primitive radar systems turned toward the sky with new urgency. Their scientists started working on bigger and more powerful weapons. Oh! Most puzzling of all, their various nations began to cooperate with each other in ways they had never done before. Something is wrong, Vorthex's assistant reported. The humans are not responding as expected. They appear to be preparing for war. Vorthok studied the data with growing alarm. This had never happened before. The whisper frequencies should have been making the humans more docile, not more aggressive. But somehow, instead of giving up, they were getting ready to fight back. For the first time in over 1,000 years, the collective's perfect weapon had failed to work. Dr. Sujin was the first person to notice something was wrong. She had been working late in her laboratory in Seoul, studying brainwave patterns in people who had been complaining about strange feelings of sadness and hopelessness. For weeks, hospitals around the world had been reporting increases in depression and anxiety, but no one could explain why. Then Sujin discovered the frequencies. They were so quiet that normal equipment could not detect them. But her new experimental sensors picked up the alien signals coming from space. When she realized what she was seeing, her hands began to shake. These were not natural sounds from stars or planets. Someone was deliberately broadcasting these frequencies toward Earth within hours. Sujin's discovery had reached the highest levels of government. Emergency meetings were called in every major capital. Scientists worked around the clock to confirm what seemed impossible: an alien species was trying to control human minds through sound waves. General Minho received the briefing at 3 in the morning. He was a veteran of many conflicts, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. As he read the report, his expression grew darker and darker. The aliens had been slowly poisoning human minds for months, trying to make them give up without a fight. "How long have they been doing this?" he asked the scientist who had brought him the report. "We think about 8 months, sir, maybe longer. The signals are very sophisticated. They target specific parts of the brain that control our will to fight and our sense of hope." Minho stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the city looked normal, but he knew that was an illusion. Every person down there was under attack, even if they did not know it. The aliens had been trying to turn humanity into sheep. "Call an emergency session of the Security Council," he ordered. Every nation needs to hear this. The meeting that followed changed the course of human history. Representatives from every major country gathered in a secure bunker deep underground. When they heard the evidence, the room fell silent. Then slowly, anger began to replace shock. "They think we are weak," said General Kyung from South Korea. "They think they can break us with whispers and hidden signals." "They are wrong," replied Admiral Yuna from Japan. "Humans do not break easily." Within 24 hours, something unprecedented happened. Nations that had been enemies for decades suddenly became allies. The United Defense Coalition was formed. In a single day, with representatives from every continent, old grudges were forgotten, ancient conflicts put aside. Humanity had found a common enemy. Project Thunderclap began immediately. Every major industrial facility on Earth was converted to military production. Car factories started building spaceship parts. Electronics companies began making weapon systems. Even toy manufacturers were enlisted to produce components for the war effort. The transformation was incredible. In just 3 months, Earth's orbital shipyards were working at full capacity. These were facilities that had been planned for decades, but never built due to cost and political disagreements. Now they appeared almost overnight. Assembled by workers who labored in shifts around the clock, Captain Jiwon commanded the first ship to roll off the production line. It was not beautiful like the spaceships in movies. It was ugly, functional, and covered in weapons. The hull was thick armor plating, and missile launchers stuck out like spines along its sides. But it was fast, and it was deadly. "What should we name it?" asked her second dash. In dash command. G1 looked at the rough metal walls around her. This ship had been built by human hands in human factories, powered by human determination. Call it Defiance, she said, because that is what we are, defiant. More ships followed. Each one was different, built by different nations using different techniques, but they all had the same purpose. They were weapons of war, designed to carry the fight to the enemy. On the side of each ship, painted in dozens of languages, was a simple message: Earth remembers. The alien monitoring stations in the asteroid belt had been watching Earth carefully, expecting to see the final collapse of human resistance. Instead, they detected something that made their operators panic. Ships were launching from Earth. Not just one or two, but dozens, then hundreds. Commander Vorthok stared at the readings in disbelief. "This is impossible," he muttered. "The frequencies should have broken their will to fight. They should be ready to surrender." "Sir," his assistant said nervously, "these are not exploration vessels. They are warships, and they are heading directly toward us." For the first time in over 1,000 years, the collective faced an enemy that refused to give up. The humans had discovered the Whisper campaign, and instead of surrendering, they had declared war. The primitive species that was supposed to be easy prey had revealed its true nature. They were not sheep waiting to be slaughtered. They were predators, and they were angry. As the human fleet approached the asteroid belt, the aliens finally understood their mistake. They had tried to break humanity's spirit with quiet whispers, but humans had answered with a roar that echoed across the solar system. The hunt was on, and this time, the humans were coming for them. The first battle began at dawn on what humans would later call Defiance Day. Captain Ji-hoon stood on the bridge of his destroyer, watching the massive alien station floating in the asteroid belt. It was beautiful in a cold, alien way, all smooth curves and glowing lights, like a crystal palace in space. But Ji-hoon knew it was the source of the signals that had been trying to poison human minds for months. "Ships. This is Captain Ji-hoon." He spoke into his radio. "Remember why we are here? They tried to break us with whispers. Now we show." "Then what happens when Earth gets angry?" The alien station was called Ceres Station by the humans, named after the largest asteroid nearby. It was 10 times bigger than any human ship, with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. The aliens expected the primitive humans to approach carefully, maybe send a message asking for talks, or at least try to negotiate instead. The human ships came at them at full speed, firing everything they had. Commander Vorthok watched the human attack with growing horror. "This is not how civilized species conduct warfare," he said to his officers. "Where are their demands? Where is their attempt at diplomacy?" "Sir," his weapons officer replied, "they are not trying to talk. They are trying to destroy us." The battle was unlike anything the collective had ever experienced. For 1,000 years, they had fought only against species that had already been broken by the whisper frequencies. Those enemies fought half-heartedly, more concerned with preserving their own lives than with winning. But the humans fought as if their very existence depended on every shot, every maneuver. Lieutenant Minji commanded a small fighter craft, barely the size of a car. Her ship had only 2 missiles and a small laser cannon. When she saw a massive alien cruiser heading toward the human fleet, she did not retreat or call for backup. Instead, she flew directly at it, firing her missiles at its weapon systems. "This is Minji," she radioed to her squadron. "I am going to try something crazy. If it works, follow my lead." She aimed her fighter at the cruiser's bridge and accelerated to maximum speed. The alien ship tried to shoot her down, but she was too small and too fast. At the last second, she ejected from her fighter and watched it slam into the alien ship's control center. The explosion was small, but it was enough to disable the cruiser's navigation systems. "All fighters, this is Squadron Leader," came the radio call. "Minji just showed us how to do it. Target their bridges and engine rooms. Use your ships as weapons if you have to." The aliens could not understand this tactic. In their experience, pilots tried to preserve their ships and their own lives. But human pilots were turning their fighters into missiles, sacrificing themselves to take out larger enemy vessels. Captain Ji-hoon's destroyer was one of the larger human ships. but it was still tiny compared to the alien battle cruisers. His weapons ran out of ammunition. His crew expected him to retreat and rearm. Instead, he turned his ship toward the largest alien vessel he could see. "All hands, this is the captain," he announced over the ship's speakers. "We came here too. Send a message. I think it is time to deliver it." The alien command ship was massive, with armor plating that could withstand nuclear explosions. But Ji-hoon's destroyer was moving at incredible speed, and kinetic energy was a powerful weapon. When the human ship slammed into the alien vessel, the explosion could be seen from Earth. Ji-hoon's final radio. Transmission was heard by every human ship in the battle zone. "Tell them we were here. Tell them Earth doesn't kneel." The battle lasted 14 hours. When it was over, the alien station was destroyed, and most of the collective ships were either destroyed or retreating. But the humans had paid a terrible price. More than half of their fleet was gone, and thousands of brave men and women had died. But something important had happened during those 14 hours. The aliens had learned that humans were not like other species they had conquered. When human ships were damaged, they did not try to escape. They used their damage as a weapon, ramming into enemy vessels. When human fighters ran out of missiles, they turned themselves into missiles. Most importantly, the aliens realized that their Whisper campaign had completely failed. Instead of making humans weak and passive, it had made them angry and united. Every nation on Earth was now working together, all focused on the same goal, making sure the aliens never tried to conquer Earth again. Commander Vorthok survived the battle, but his ship was badly damaged. As he limped back toward alien space, he sent a message to his superiors. "The humans are not like other species. They do not fight to win territory or resources. They fight because they refuse to lose. We have awakened something that should have been left sleeping." The Battle of Ceres Station became a legend that spread across the galaxy. It was the first time in 1,000 years that the collective had been defeated in battle. More importantly, it was the first time that a species had turned the Whisper campaign against itself, using it as motivation for war rather than surrender. The humans had answered the alien whispers with cannon fire, and the message was clear. Earth would not kneel to anyone. Admiral Thalix floated in the zero gravity of his damaged command center, watching sparks fly from broken control panels. His beautiful flagship, once the pride of the collective's Fourth Fleet, now looked like a piece of space junk. Human railgun slugs had punched through its elegant silver hull, and half of its graceful spires had been blown away completely. "How many ships do we have left?" he asked his communications officer, though he already feared the answer. 42 ships remain operational, sir. We started with 108. The officer's voice was shaking. "The humans. They destroyed 66 of our vessels." The Lix felt his four hearts sinking. In over 1,000 years, the collective had never lost so many ships in a single campaign. They had expected to face a broken, demoralized species that would surrender after the first show of force. Instead, they had encountered something far more dangerous. "Sir," another officer called out, "you need to see this intelligence report. The humans are not just fighting us. They are studying us." The report that appeared on Thalix's screen made his blood run cold. Human salvage teams had been collecting pieces of destroyed collective ships. Instead of just taking weapons and armor, they were taking everything: computers, engines, life support systems, even the alien equivalent of coffee makers. "They are reverse engineering our technology," the intelligence officer explained. "Sir, they are not just copying it, they are making it better." Dr. Hayen stood in the center of Earth's most advanced research facility, surrounded by pieces of alien technology that her team had been studying for months. The captured alien computers were incredibly advanced, but they were also surprisingly fragile. They seemed to be designed for species that were careful and methodical, not for the harsh realities of human warfare. "Look at this," she said to her assistant, pointing to a holographic display of an alien engine. "They built this hyperdrive system to be efficient and elegant. It can travel faster than light, but it shuts down if it gets too hot, or if the power fluctuates even slightly." Her assistant, a young engineer named Dojen, nodded. Human ships get damaged all the time in battle. We need engines that keep working even when everything else is falling apart. Exactly, Heian replied. So we are going to rebuild this alien technology to human standards. More robust, more powerful, and much harder to destroy. The project that followed was unlike anything in human history. Teams of scientists and engineers worked around the clock, combining alien technology with human ingenuity. They took the aliens' faster-than-light engines and rebuilt them with human manufacturing techniques. They took alien computers and programmed them with human software. They took alien weapons and mounted them on human ships, but they did not just copy the alien designs. They improved them. The aliens had built their ships to be beautiful and efficient. Humans built their ships to win wars. Where the aliens used delicate materials that needed careful handling, humans used thick armor plating that could absorb tremendous punishment. Where the aliens built elegant control systems that required trained operators, humans built simple controls that could be operated by anyone. Captain Sunho was the first human to command one of the new hybrid. The vessel was massive, 3 times larger than any previous human ship, but it was also unmistakably human in its design. It had thick armor, redundant systems, and enough weapons to destroy a small fleet. "What should we call her?" asked his first officer. Sunho looked at the ship's brutal angular design. It was not beautiful like the alien vessels, but it was powerful and intimidating. "Call her Nemesis," he said, "'cause that is what we are to our enemies, their worst nightmare." The new ship's first test came when a small group of alien scouts approached the outer solar system. The aliens expected to find the same primitive human vessels they had fought before. Instead, they encountered something that seemed impossible. The human ship was using alien technology, but it was faster and more powerful than anything the collective had ever built. When the aliens tried to retreat, the human ship caught up with them easily. When they tried to fight, they found themselves outgunned and outmaneuvered. "Impossible," whispered the alien commander as his ship was destroyed. How did primitives build something so advanced? Back on his crippled flagship, Admiral Thalix received the final reports from his scattered fleet. The humans were not just winning battles. They were evolving at an incredible rate. Every month, their ships were getting better, their tactics were getting smarter, and their technology was getting more advanced. "Sir," his science officer reported, "we have analyzed the wreckage of the ships that attacked our scouts. The humans have somehow combined our hyperdrive technology with their own weapon systems. The result is more powerful than our original designs." Thalix closed his eyes. The collective had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years by being more advanced than everyone else. But now, they had encountered a species that could take their technology and make it better. The humans were not just fighting a war, they were revolutionizing warfare itself. "Send a message to High Command," he ordered. "Tell them we are not fighting primitives anymore. We are fighting something much more dangerous. A species that learns from every battle and gets stronger with every defeat." The tide of war had turned. The hunters had become the hunted. 3 years after the Battle of Ceres Station, General Minho stood on the bridge of the most powerful warship ever built by human hands. Indomitable was the size of a small city, bristling with weapons that combined the best of human engineering with captured alien technology. Round it, thousands of other human ships filled the space near the alien homeworld, a massive fleet that had grown from the desperate. A handful of vessels that first fought in the asteroid belt. The alien home system was beautiful in a way that took Minho's breath away. 3 suns cast rainbow light across crystal cities that floated in space like jewels. For 1,000 years, this had been the center of an empire that stretched across the galaxy. And now it was about to fall to a species that the aliens had dismissed as primitive just a few years ago. "Sir, Communications Officer Yujin reported, we are receiving surrender signals from the collective High Command. They are asking for terms." Minho smiled grimly. The irony was not lost on him. The aliens had started this war by whispering poison into human minds, trying to make them give up without a fight. Now the same aliens were begging for mercy from the species they had tried to conquer. "Open a channel to all collective forces," he ordered. Let me speak to their leaders. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the alien high command. They were tall, graceful beings with 4 arms and skin that shimmered like oil on water. They had once ruled 47 star systems, commanding fleets that could destroy entire worlds. Now they cowered before a human general who had grown up on a farm in rural Korea. "We surrender," the alien leader said, his voice heavy with defeat. "We acknowledge human superiority. We will withdraw from your solar system and never return." "No," Minho replied firmly. "That is not enough." The alien leader's eyes widened in surprise. "What do you mean?" "We are offering complete surrender. You have enslaved 47 civilizations," Minho said. "You have used your whisper technology to break the spirits of billions of beings across the galaxy. Leaving our system is just the beginning of what you owe." Behind Minho, Admiral Yunbi whispered, "Sir, we have confirmed intelligence on all 47 conquered systems. The aliens are still using their mind control technology on those populations." Minho nodded and turned back to the alien leaders. "Here are our terms," he announced. "First, complete withdrawal from all conquered systems. Second, you will provide reparations and technology to help rebuild the civilizations you destroyed. Third, and most important, you will help us free every single species you have enslaved." The alien leader's skin turned a darker shade of blue, which humans had learned was a sign of fear. "Impossible," he stammered. "Those systems have been under our control for centuries. The populations are completely pacified. They would not know how to govern themselves." "Then you will teach them," Minho replied coldly. "You broke them. You will help us fix them." Dr. Heian, now the head of Human Xenotechnology Division, stepped forward. "We have analyzed your whisper technology," she said. "We know how to reverse its effects, but we need your cooperation to do it safely." The negotiation that followed lasted 3 days. The aliens tried to bargain, to reduce the terms, to find some way to maintain their empire, but humanity was not interested in compromise. They had learned too much about the collective's crimes to show mercy. On the 3rd day, the alien leader finally agreed to all human demands. "We accept your terms," he said bitterly. "But know this, humans. You are making enemies across the galaxy. Other species will fear your power." "Good," Minho replied. "Fear will keep them from trying what you tried." The message that went out from the alien homeworld that day was heard across every star system in the galaxy. It was not whispered quietly like the alien signals had been. It was broadcast loudly on every frequency, translated into every known language. "This is General Minho of the Terran Federation," the message began. "Today, the Zephyrian Collective has surrendered unconditionally to human forces. For 1,000 years, they have enslaved other species using mind control technology. That ends now." The message continued, "Earth stands with the oppressed. We remember what was done to us, and we will not let it happen to others. Any species that tries to conquer the weak will find themselves facing the combined might of humanity. Earth remembers. Earth will not kneel, and Earth will not let others kneel either." Within months, human fleets were spreading across the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as liberators. They went to every system that had been enslaved by the collective, shut down the whisper transmissions, and helped the freed populations rebuild their societies, Captain. Jehun's sacrifice at Ceres Station had become a legend that inspired beings. Across the galaxy, his final words, "Tell them we were here. Tell them Earth doesn't kneel," became a rallying cry for freedom everywhere. The collective's empire crumbled within a single generation. The species that had once ruled the galaxy became refugees, scattered across distant worlds, remembered only as a warning about what happened when someone tried to break the human spirit. The cosmos had learned an important lesson. For 1,000 years, the galaxy had been ruled by whispers and subtle manipulation. But now, there was a new power, one that spoke with the voice of thunder and backed its words with actions. The age of whispers was over. The age of humanity had begun.